Bright-eyed, we're bushy-tailed. It's a Monday morning of chaos on Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we have so much to get into. I don't know about you, but I think we all had a late Sunday night, and we'll get into exactly why, my friend. But let's start this Monday morning with tons of football reaction the way we start every single show. 3 points. What do you want to get into first, Caroline Fenton?
Yeah, it was a late one, but just put a little extra something in your coffee this morning. You can't be tired. It was the first weekend of NFL football. Let's go. Wake up, people. And we had so much action from the weekend that we will get into all throughout today's show. But we start with what was said in a press conference. And you may have missed it when you were sitting on your couch watching 7 hours of red zone football. So I will fill you in. Brian Daboll has not really committed to Russell Wilson being the starter in week 2 after the Giants 21-6 loss to Washington. He was asked if it was fair to say that quarterback Russell Wilson will be the team starter next week. And all summer long, all training camp long, Brian Daboll was very committal to Russell Wilson. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was very smart. And I thought it was a good move by Brian Daboll to basically protect his young rookie quarterback in Jaxson Dart and leave zero room for interpretation, to basically completely slam the door shut on any fodder or any thought that Jaxson Dart could be the Giants starter week 1. I thought that was smart. Let the kid sit. Let the kid develop. Let the kid learn and absorb from all the veterans around him. But this time, Brian Daboll, not so convincing. He was asked if he would consider starting Jaxson Dart next week. He said, quote, "We're going to get home and look at our game." Good coach speak there. A little page out of the expert coach speak playbook there. He reiterated, though, that he does have confidence in Russell Wilson. He did reiterate that the loss wasn't just on Russell Wilson, but still, after continued pressing from the media, he would not commit to Russ in week 2. It seems pretty clear that Brian Daboll's job hinges on the development of Jaxson Dart. So I do understand Brian Daboll maybe feeling the heat a little bit. But if all offseason long, your plan was let Jaxson Dart sit. Let Jaxson Dart learn. Let Jaxson Dart develop in the NFL. Now, all of a sudden, all it takes is 1 week and 1 loss to completely throw that out the window, to at least consider an avenue where Jaxson Dart would start in week 2. I think that is way too rushed. And I think that after all of the offseason of me praising Brian Daboll for bringing Jaxson Dart along slowly and then potentially considering Jaxson Dart to start week 2, completely off base and way too much of a rush, in my opinion, Fitzy.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you start Dart when he's ready to start, not when Russ sucks. So at the end of the day, in my mind, if you've only had 5 or 6 practices since you named Russ the starter, Jaxson Dart didn't figure it out in 5 or 6 practices. Be patient. Get it right, Giants fans. All right, I'll get to my first point before we get to, obviously, the game of the century. And the first point for me is same old Bucks, same old Falcons. Look, this matchup, a divisional matchup in week 1 that meant so much and could mean so much to playoff seeding, came right down to the wire. And at the end of the day, the Falcons found a way to lose. The Bucks found a way to win, and that's what both of these franchises always do. You weren't paying attention to this game unless you're a mega fan of both teams, but I was. And what did we see? We see late in the game the Falcons just need a stop, and Baker Mayfield goes down the field and absolutely reminds us that Emeka Egbuka is going to be a star from day 1. They get a touchdown. It looks like the game's over, but no! They miss an extra point. It's only a 3-point game. The Falcons get the ball back. They drive down the field. Penix is going to have his defining big moment, and what do? One of the more reliable kickers in the league simply shanks it, misses the game-tying kick, and all of a sudden we end up here. The Buccaneers get a 23-20 win. And it's only one game, but it's not only one game, because when you start with the divisional opponent and you are presumed to be the 2 best teams in your division, it's really like a game and a half, as we talk about all the time, because it gave you a little bit of an edge in the tiebreaker. Most importantly, it gives you an edge in mentality. The Buccaneers did what they know how to do in this situation, even with yet another offensive coordinator. Let's remind the world, and we like to talk about it when quarterbacks suck. We like to talk about how many offensive coordinators they've had. Well, Baker Mayfield, for the 3rd consecutive year, has a new offensive coordinator. Going to take a second to get together. Well, it didn't. It took about a half of football before the Buccaneers figured it out, started to get right, even with injuries. And the Falcons had their moment, and instead, the Falcons falconed. And it leads to this mindset of, here we go again. If I feel it, if Falcons fans feel it, you cannot tell me they don't feel it in that locker room. They don't understand that, yet again, this is just what happens. Good teams find a way to win. Bad teams find a way to lose. These games are decided in the margins. And what we learned in 1 week is that the Falcons still don't know how to win games in the margins. All right, let's get to our top point because it was an instant classic. The game of the day, the game of the year, the game of the millennium, the game of the century. I don't know. There is no such thing as overhyping what we saw, mostly because it kept us up till 1 a.m. on the East Coast. Come on now. We had the Ravens taking on the Bills in the Sunday night matchup, and for the first time since 1991, that's not a mistake, for the first time since 1991, a team was trailing by 15 points with 4 minutes to go and won the game in regulation. Have some faith next time is what Josh Allen says, because we watched the Ravens absolutely implode, and we watched Buffalo absolutely tear it up. Caroline, I keep looking at this saying, my God, the growth we saw from Buffalo in the fourth quarter. I spent 3 quarters screaming they need a wide receiver 1. And then I spent the fourth quarter saying, no, they don't. They got a cheat code, and his name is Josh Allen. The cheat code of Josh Allen is 1-0 thanks to just an absolutely mammoth MVP game.
Yeah, I mean, this second half, I mean, I even got to the point, so I just moved to the Eastern time zone, so I'm still adjusting to games starting at 8:30 in the afternoon. I will learn. But I thought, I think this game feels over. Like, the Ravens have a double-digit lead. Like, do I just want to go to bed? And then I thought, no, of course, I'm not going to do that. It's the first Sunday Night Football of the year. Of course I'm not going to bed. And I'm really glad that I didn't, because then I would have missed out on an all-time performance from Josh Allen. And look, it's not like that Bills offense was hitting on all cylinders in the first half. It was stagnant at times. It sputtered at times. It felt like at times that Ravens defense was just too much for the Bills to consistently put scoring drives together. But in the second half, everything was firing, whether that was the Ravens defense taking their foot off the gas or if it was the Bills figuring things out and making those halftime adjustments. I would like to say the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but Josh Allen just absolutely came alive in the second half. And if you're waking up in the city of Buffalo today, or you're waking up like our producer Josh as a Bills fan today, you have the same feeling that Chiefs fans have probably had for a very long time with Patrick Mahomes. And that is, as long as our guy has the ball in his hands, I don't care what the score is. We trust him. Like the F it, Josh Allen's got us kind of feeling that Chiefs fans have had for so long. And look, I'm not saying that Josh Allen is Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes has a certain kind of clutch gene that differentiates him from the rest of the quarterbacks in the National Football League. We saw that kind of clutch gene from Josh Allen last night that I think can give Bills fans any sort of feeling of relief, any sort of feeling of comfort in any situation, whether it's throughout the rest of the regular season or more notably in the postseason. I know we're only in week 1. I know we have a very small sample size, but based off of what we saw in 1 week, there's a certain level of confidence that every Bills fan should have and probably has had with Josh Allen, but it was on full display against one of the best teams in the National Football League last night when it mattered most.
I think that week 1 overreactions are part of culture, and most of the time they're just dumb. I don't think there's such a thing as an overreaction to what Josh Allen did last night. You're talking about a 29-year-old quarterback. And I just remind you, 29-year-old quarterback, because we saw some other quarterbacks that were 40 go out there and crush it over the weekend, right? So you're talking about a 29-year-old quarterback that just took the ball in his hands and said, nah, we're good. You're talking about a Bills team that put 41 on a Ravens defense that was supposed to be pretty good, a Ravens team that I thought would be the best in the AFC this year. And you're talking about a Josh Allen that makes defenders make decisions. And I watched last night's game, reminded that quarterback play right now in the AFC is at its best when the quarterback puts the defender in the situation where they have to pick their poison. The number of times Josh Allen would start to run around and you would watch the Ravens defense try to figure out how they were going to manage him. And the minute they made a decision, okay, we're going to go after Josh. What would Josh do? He'd flick it up. Now, I don't want to get this twisted. The Bills got a little lucky. It's better to be lucky than good. Certainly, when you have a tip drill that lands in the arms of Keon Coleman for a touchdown, nobody saw that coming. And certainly, I wouldn't plan most of the time on winning the game because, in part, Derrick Henry fumbles the football. But in order to take advantage of that, you have to be capable. What I saw through this game, I mentioned Keon Coleman, like Palmer. You saw guys rise in that fourth quarter. And that, to me, is the biggest key. When you see the game is on the line and somebody's got their back up against the wall and all of a sudden you are in a corner like a prize fighter in a boxing match. You are in the corner, and you have to box your way out of it. Josh Allen took the punches for 3 quarters. They were down by 15, and he never once changed. He stayed so consistent, Caroline. And then when they needed those big plays, was so calm through that moment. I walked away from it more impressed than ever. You're talking about 2 MVP candidates, and we knew this was going to be an epic battle. You're talking about 2 former MVPs in this league. I just felt like Josh Allen rose above with a level of calm that is going to stick in my head, because later this year, when they're down late in the game, he can look at that entire sideline and say, y'all, we've been here against a better team. We're going to be just fine. And he's right.
You are hard-pressed to find a more dangerous player in the NFL when the Bills' offense starts to get up tempo and when Josh Allen is on the move than Josh Allen. Like, that Bills offense, I felt like really started to find its footing and really started to be able to go up tempo a lot more in the second half than they did in the first. And you just saw Josh Allen settle in and start to do his thing. It's like watching a magician, start to do his tricks. It's like you saw Josh Allen really start to find his groove and start to do what he does best. And like you said, like when he is on the move, you could tell with the Ravens defenders, which I think is going to be a very good defense. I don't think there's any other defense in the NFL that could say, oh yeah, we know where he's going with this and we feel like we can stop it, especially in the second half. And we saw, I think, some flickers of it in the first half, of course, but really in the second half, it was like, who can stop this guy? And you bring up luck, and of course there's an element of that, and we'll get into the Ravens side of things. I think for any Super Bowl run, there's a little bit of luck that's involved. And talking about the Super Bowl on September 8th, I understand is crazy. But we are going into a season where it feels like the Super Bowl is the expectation for the Buffalo Bills. That they're going into this year, following up last year, a Josh Allen MVP season where the Bills were just that close. We're just one play away in the AFC Championship game. That now it feels like, no, we are currently in a Super Bowl window. So maybe in February, if we're talking about a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl, we can look back at this game and say, look, sometimes you got to get a little bit lucky. And I also think, we talked last week about Sean McDermott potentially being on the hot seat, that if the Bills fall short of the Super Bowl, will Sean McDermott, find himself looking for a new job at the end of the season? And I do think that is incredibly premature. But last night, I think that we saw why Sean McDermott is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Because that team never felt like they tucked their tail between their legs. That team never felt like they just threw up the white flag or threw their hands up and said, well, we're down 2 scores against this Baltimore Ravens team. There's no way we're going to come back. That was a team that just continued to fight. And that kind of fight and that level of tenacity and fire that you play with, even down, 2+ scores, even down double digits in the second half, I think would be something that we could praise even if the Buffalo Bills did not find themselves in the win column this morning. So I have to give a whole lot of credit, not just to Josh Allen, but to that coaching staff as well, that culture on that Bills team that they will not quit.
I agree wholeheartedly, but part of this also comes down to the meltdown portion of this from the other sideline. If I'm going to credit McDermott, then I think it's fair to look at Harbaugh and say, what the hell did you just let happen on that field? And look, it's never one person or one play, right? We have to acknowledge that. But when systematically there are several people with several plays that make mistakes, we look at the coach. This is the 17th fourth quarter lead for Harbaugh. I mean, you start to think about that. Baltimore's the first team.
17th fourth quarter double-digit blown lead, Fitz. 17th. Let that sink in. That is so devastating if you're a Ravens fan.
Look at the stat line you see on the screen here, too. Baltimore scores 40-plus, rushes for 235 in a loss. Now, again, you had a weird tip pass in the end zone. Fine. Let's stack that. You had Derrick Henry fumbling the ball, which we all know is incredibly rare. And I don't want to take away from the fact that they're not even in that situation if Henry isn't absolutely epic and mind-blowing, which he was. But he fumbled when they needed him most, right? You've got defensive pass interference calls left and right that were good calls. Ravens fans, you can't yell about it. They were good calls. Like, your defense fell apart. You look at the number of things that went wrong for the Ravens in the last 6-7 minutes of this game. It's epic. So you just said, and I think correctly, that I walk away with so much faith in Josh Allen's ability when the game's coming down to the wire to figure out how to win it. That's fair based on week one. Based on week one, it's also fair to turn around and look at the Ravens and say, can they do the same? Do they have the wiring to win a game like this? Because the implosion of the Ravens has to be part of this conversation. Not taking anything away from Buffalo, but certainly a lot of this has to lie right squarely at the feet of Harbaugh and the Ravens. And we have to be asking ourselves, are they truly one of the best teams in the AFC if they can't win a game like this that you absolutely have to win?
I think both things can be true. The Ravens are one of the best teams, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL. But they're still so incredibly difficult to trust. And their postseason record is part of that. And last night, that was the perfect example of why the Ravens are so difficult to trust. And I think that's a different conversation. When people say, well, the Ravens can't win in the postseason, it's not that they can't, it's just that they haven't under Lamar Jackson, right? And this is why it is so hard to trust this Ravens team. Because, you mentioned the Derrick Henry fumble. There was a 27-yard DPI on 4th down in the third quarter that led to a Bills touchdown. There was the missed extra point. Well, you lost by 1. So that 1 point looks really, really attractive now, doesn't it? So those are all teeny tiny little things that show up in a big way when your margin for error is so slim against teams like the Buffalo Bills. And I think it's also important to point out when we talk about the trust factor, because this isn't just a Ravens thing. It's not a Lamar thing. We just saw it, 17 blown double-digit fourth quarter leads by Harbaugh. This is a Harbaugh thing as well. Not just this team. It's not just getting unlucky every once in a while. I think it's also important to point out the Ravens' final possession of the game, right? They go into the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter up 40-38. They run it once with Derrick Henry for a yard. And then it's 2 pass plays. And then they punt on 4th and 3. It's really easy for people like you and me, Fitz, to get up here in front of a microphone on Monday and critique a decision just because it doesn't work. I have a personal philosophy, though, that just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that it was a bad decision, and vice versa. Just because something worked doesn't mean it was a good decision. In the moment, I'm looking at it when you just need to hold on to the football. We need to chew clock. And if you give the ball back to Bills, a field goal wins it. Like, it's not even just overtime. A field goal wins it. And you decide to run it with Derrick Henry one time with the ball in your hands when Derrick Henry is averaging 9 yards a crack, and then you punt it away on 4th and 3, you're not even going to give yourself an opportunity on 4th down? Like, if the Ravens ran the ball, run it, the Bills get the ball back, they end up kicking a field goal, and they still end up winning the game. I think that I can sleep a whole lot better at night knowing that I put the ball in Derrick Henry's hands when he's running it like a freaking maniac.
I also feel like Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, in these situations has to have creative play calls that do exactly that. I don't think it's necessarily just I give the ball to Derrick Henry and pound it up the middle and hope that everything's there, because certainly the Bills know it's coming. But those holes have been created. Running against a stacked box was a huge part of how Derrick Henry got his yards. And I thought Collinsworth did a beautiful job on the broadcast of pointing out that the Bills were stacking the box so heavy that if they didn't hit him right at the line, he was busting through for 20, 30, 40 yards. So certainly they can execute through that stacked box. But where was the, oh my God, I can't believe they did that out of that formation? That's where offensive coordinators get paid, is the, wow, I can't believe from that formation they did that thing that got them those yards. It's scheme, and I wanted to see better scheme towards the end. It was a meltdown for the Ravens. It was an absolute epic conclusion for the Bills, and it gave us the game of the millennium. We'll keep breaking it down, plus all of the action. I know, it's maybe the game of the lifetime, best game ever. I'm going to be as hyperbolic as I want today because it was fun to watch. But it wasn't the only impressive performance. What do we make of the Packers just shellacking the Lions? All that plus more with Frank Schwab joining us next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Who doesn't love a good mural, including this one? Thanks, Jerry. That hangs across from Lambeau Field on Lambeau Avenue. Thanking Cowboys owner Jerry Jones for Micah Parsons, who made his Packers debut, and it was a successful one for the entire team. We're going to break that down and more with our great Frank Schwab joining us right now. You can check out Frank on Inside Coverage and his writing, obviously, across Yahoo Sports, hanging out with us on Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Okay, let's take Sunday night out of the equation for a second. We'll separate the Sunday night game, Frank. Other than that game, did the Packers have the most impressive win of the weekend?
Yeah, maybe the Chargers. If we go back to Friday, that was pretty good. But the Packers look like just an incredible, complete team. Like it wasn't even the Micah Parsons show. If you would have told me the defense played that well, basically kind of kept the Lions out of the end zone. I know the Lions scored a garbage touchdown late. And Micah, I would have said, okay, Micah Parsons came in at 4 sacks, but it wasn't really. I mean, Micah made plays in the snaps he played, but with Micah playing limited snaps, the Lions couldn't move the ball. It was absolutely impressive. And Jordan Love looked good, and everything looked good for the Packers. The Packers should feel today as they wake up, we're the best team in the NFC North, and by proxy, maybe the best team in the NFC. Like I was so impressed with their defense. And I don't know how it's always a problem, Fitz. And we talked about this on the Sunday night show last year. With one data point, you don't know, was this the Lions? Like, did they get exposed a little bit, or was this the Packers? Like, you look at Colts Dolphins. I can tell you, I think just the Dolphins stink, right? Like, but with this, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe the Packers are just this good, or the Lions, they look like a mess. Their offensive line couldn't block. Jared Goff didn't look good. Nothing looked good for them. But yeah, I think if you're saying which team were you like, whoa, this might be a Super Bowl team that we, we're a little bit on the fence about. Yeah, Green Bay Packers for sure.
Yeah, I do feel like the Packers are rightfully so the story of that game, and I don't want to take anything away from that performance, but it does leave me wondering what you just brought up. How much of this was about the Lions? How big of a concern is it that Detroit is without their 2 coordinators and they looked the way that they did on Sunday against the Packers? What should the concern level be in Detroit?
A little bit. I think it's just 1 week. You played on the road against a really good team. The only concern I have, and it's not even the coordinators as much to me as it is the other thing the Lions lost, and that's 2 of their 3 interior linemen. Frank Ragnow retires really kind of late in the offseason, and surprisingly so at age 29. Kevin Zeitler had already left in free agency. And you're like, okay, that's pretty bad for them because their offensive line was such a big part of what they did. And yesterday, their offensive line was awful. It went from maybe the best offensive line in football to being one of the worst. And you do have to weigh what does that, is that the Packers front? Is that the Lions? I don't really worry. I think the coordinator's going to be fine. I think Goff's going to be fine. I think everybody, the whole function is going to be fine for the Lions. But I do wonder about the offensive line. If their offensive line is not better than it was yesterday, then this is just not the same team. Like that was the bedrock of what they've done the past couple of years. And it just wasn't the same yesterday. That's the one concern long-term I have with the Lions is can they fix the interior of that offensive line? And even the tackles didn't play well. Like none of those, even Penei Sewell, one of the best players in the NFL, not just one of the best linemen, one of the best players in the NFL. Even he didn't play well. So that whole offensive line was awful yesterday. And that's what has to get fixed for the Lions to get back to being a contender this season.
It's funny, Frank, because I'll throw myself under the bus for a second. We did 2 years of Sunday night reaction shows. So for 2 years, I feel like you heard me every week say, I just want to see a little bit more from Jordan Love. And then Jordan Love came out yesterday. He looks surgical, dude. When you talk about just the absolute, man, we talk about leaps and progressions and things we want to see from quarterbacks. I felt like I was watching a different human being play quarterback. The confidence, the accuracy, just the mobility, where he was placing the ball. To me, Jordan Love took this massive leap forward. So can I now certainly jump on the Jordan Love bandwagon? Is that allowed at this point?
It is allowed. And, it looked like Jordan Love from the second half of the season 2 years ago when he was just on fire. And both me and you were a little skeptical, saying, all right, well, that's half a season. And he still that year struggled against the Raiders on a Monday night, whatever. Last season was tough because he got injured right away. In that Brazil game, he suffered an injury. He suffered another injury, I think groin injury a little later. He never really was right all season. And so they were a really run-heavy team. It kind of hid Jordan Love a little bit. Yesterday, we saw Jordan Love play an excellent game. He looked fantastic. I mean, everything the Lions didn't do well, the Packers did well. Like everything, like the run game was better. The Jordan Love was better in golf. The offensive line, the defense, everything was better. And yes, Jordan Love looked like that's what we're going to see. If we're going to see the Jordan Love from the second half of the season 2 years ago, the Packers might be the best team in football. Like, I mean, that's if Jordan Love is that dude, that's the Packers ceiling is the best team in football. We already knew they had it in them, with especially when they got Micah. And if Jordan Love levels up, well, okay, it might be game over, because I mean that was an absolutely impressive performance by Jordan Love. You said it, looked surgical, looked like a guy who knew exactly where to go with the ball, multiple weapons. That offense was really functioning at a high level.
And I think that's what everyone was scared of whenever the Packers did trade for Micah was, well, if Jordan Love takes that next step forward and you add one of the best defensive players in football, then who is stopping this team? But I do want to get into Micah Parsons. We saw his debut as a Green Bay Packer, and I'm not going to lie, seeing him in a Packer uniform looked a little weird, but it felt
It was so weird, Caroline. It was so
weird. It was so weird. But he got 1 sack. He was on the field for 3 of the Packers' 4 sacks on the day. Obviously, the stats didn't pop off the box score. It wasn't like we're talking about, a Micah Parsons legacy game today. But how would you evaluate Micah Parsons, just his presence and his impact for the Packers on Sunday?
I think, yes, even in limited snaps, he did a ton for the Packers. I think he just gave them a little jolt, a little confidence. Like, you could tell the crowd was really amped up. They're giving standing ovations every time Micah Parsons does anything. And then he comes in, and his first play, again, he's going against Penei Sewell, who, again, I'm not even saying best lineman. He might be one of the best players in the NFL. This dude's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And the first play, Micah Parsons has an inside rush and just cooks Penei Sewell, makes Jared Goff flush from the pocket and throws an incompletion. And you're like, okay, that's what Micah Parsons does. He changes your whole team. Like that, he is so good that he changes the trajectory of the Packers. You could see it in a very limited plays. Like he's out there just making things happen, and you're starting to think ahead. Okay, when this gets to October and Micah, hopefully that back feels better and he's in football shape. He's playing, 80, 90% of the snaps, whatever it's going to be. All of a sudden, yeah, that's right. He's a defensive player of the year candidate. And how does that change the defense? So I thought just in a few plays, we could see a preview of what's to come for the Packers. Not that it wasn't really, really good on Sunday, but it's going to get better. It's going to get better when Micah Parsons is back to his normal self and playing that full snap load. He was nowhere near it yesterday, but still made an impact, which is impressive.
I thought a lot about the back, Frank. I hadn't really thought about he's not in football shape yet. That's going to be scary. Okay, let's get some thoughts on some of the other news and notes from around the league. Not the least of which was Daboll being lukewarm on saying anything. What do you make of Brian Daboll not like wildly endorsing Russ after that Week 1 loss?
I mean, at halftime, I was like, just do it. Just put in Jaxson Dart. You want to do it. Everybody in New York wants it. I'm watching Russell Wilson out there not leading 1 touchdown drive against a really mediocre Commanders defense. Maybe they'll be better than we thought. Again, 1 data point from Week 1. You never know what to make of it, but I'm going on the side of I just think the Giants offense isn't that good, and Russ is just who he is at this point in his career. There's no upside anymore. There's nothing there. And I get it. Jaxson Dart probably isn't quite ready yet, but what have you got to lose? Like he's not gonna lead a touchdown drive? Well, that's what I saw yesterday for the New York Giants. So why not have the kid do that, right? Like Jaxson Dart in the preseason was one of the best players I saw, period. And not everybody played in the preseason or played much, but he was awesome in the preseason. And if I'm Brian Daboll, I'm not losing my job with Russell Wilson out there, throwing for 3 yards an attempt. It just, what's the point? Like, put the kid out there, let him start. I would start in Week 2. I would have started him second half Sunday. You just have nothing to lose at this point.
It does feel like Jaxson Dart is that kind of life preserver for Brian Daboll's job.
Yeah, he really is. Yep.
I don't know if that life preserver exists for Mike McDaniel in Miami.
Oh,
it was rough, Frank. Oh my goodness. That was, if I had any confidence for the Dolphins this year, which I don't think I really did, but if I did have any confidence for them this year, it would all be completely gone after just Week 1. What is his future with the Dolphins?
Yeah, it's not good. Anybody wearing a Dolphins uniform yesterday should be like, oh boy, I need to get my bags packed for the end of the year, or maybe mid-season. You look at like a guy like Tyreek. I mean, why wouldn't he be traded at the deadline? And Fitz knows this better than anybody, Caroline, but I get a lot wrong. But yesterday before the games, I texted our NFL editor, Joey Galino, and said, winners and losers, I might be leading with the Dolphins are the worst team in football. And and they looked even worse than I thought they could look. Like, they did not get one stop. The Indianapolis Colts, quarterbacked by Daniel Jones, scored on every single possession they had yesterday. And the offense was not any better. Like, they didn't score until I think 6 minutes left. Devon Achane kind of saved his day with a touchdown. Tua looked bad. Waddle didn't do anything. Tyreek was just Tyreek, and he's complaining on the sidelines. I mean, the defense was just absolutely, positively horrible. Like, it's one of those things, like in fantasy, like if you see somebody on your team is playing the Dolphins, just get him in the lineup, put him in, because he's going to score against that Dolphins defense. Yeah, the Dolphins, I still think the Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL, but at least they tried yesterday. The Dolphins are like, no, we're not even going to show up till week 2. That was awful. And yeah, I think Mike McDaniel now becomes the odds-on leader to be the first coach fired this season. It was that bad. Like, everything about that whole operation was bad.
The only thing worse than the game was listening to his press conference afterwards, where he fumbled around trying to figure out how to talk about it. Like, it was just everything about this is painful for Dolphins fans. It's bad. Okay, Frank, I'm going to look just at Sunday. So we're going to take any injuries outside of Sunday off the plate. We're going to look just at Sunday's action. There were 4 key injuries on Sunday. So Jalen Waddle, George Kittle, Drake London, Brock Bowers. Of those 4, which injury do you think has the most consequence to the team that will be impacted by it?
And I think it's Kittle. I mean, nothing against Bowers. I mean, but he was, what was his use? I need to text you later, Fitz, to figure out why Chip Kelly was only playing Brock Bowers a little more than half the snaps. But for me, it just, I look at the 49ers and I think about all the injury stuff that's happened already with them. And Christian McCaffrey didn't look great yesterday. I know he caught a lot of passes. They rely a lot on Kittle. He looked good early on, and he gets a hamstring. You know, those hamstrings can be tricky. So I look at everything going on with the 49ers, some of the strife they're dealing with, and now you're dealing with even more with George Kittle. That's not great. I hope George Kittle's back. He's a tough dude. He plays through a lot of injuries, so I hope he's back right away. But that is the one that I'm like, oh, this could really set the 49ers back for a while. And I know the rules. I don't listen to the rules very well when we talk, Fitz. But the Xavier Worthy injury is the one. Like, you didn't mention that. Xavier Worthy going down for the Chiefs. Like, it looked like it's Patrick Mahomes and nobody else on that Chiefs offense. And they got the Eagles coming to town this week. I think the Chiefs are in some trouble. I really do. Like, not trouble as far as like missing the playoffs or anything, but saw the Broncos win yesterday. The Chargers beat the Chiefs. All of a sudden, you're like, the Chiefs are gettable in the AFC West. They're without Rashee Rice for 6 weeks. I think they're going to be without Xavier Worthy the whole month of September. They get the Eagles next. They have the Ravens coming up pretty soon. I think the Chiefs, we might look up and we're seeing 2-4, 1-3, whatever it's going to be. I think the Chiefs are going to get off to the season a really, really slow start and have to rally to kind of even try to win a 10 straight AFC West championship.
All right, Frank, before we go, the most under-talked about first overall pick in history, possibly, Cam Ward in Tennessee. But it wasn't him that was the story of the day yesterday. It was Brian Callahan as a tactician. Several questionable calls. Like, he chose not to call a review on what looked like a catch because he didn't know the rule that he said that you have to get an elbow and a foot down when that is not the case. Right. When the Titans were up on the Broncos, backed up deep into their own territory, and he calls 3 straight pass plays and leaves the door open for the Broncos to score before half. So the Broncos are up going into half. Just like so many opportunities, Frank, where I felt like the Titans really could have stayed in it more than they even were. There was a door open for the Titans to win that game as 8.5-point underdogs. And it felt like Callahan really fumbled the bag. Your first impressions of him in year 2.
Yeah, not a great start. I mean, you get operational stuff like that wrong, and it's a little concerning. And I was already concerned about Callahan after last year. I get Will Levis was not very good, but I don't think Brian Callahan really got the best out of his team either. And you worry that this is a Matt Eberflus situation where you kind of waste your rookie's first year on a coach that's not going to be around for the long haul. Now, we'll see. I will say this about the Titans. I expected them to struggle. I expect them to struggle a lot worse than they did yesterday. The Broncos defense is unbelievable. Played that way yesterday. Cam Ward made some rookie mistakes. Look, after the muff punt, he takes 2 sacks worth 27 yards. You just can't do that, kid. Like that. I'm not going to lay that all on Brian Callahan's feet. But yeah, to your point, like I wonder if he's the right coach for Cam Ward. And I wonder if the Titans should have just said, you know what, we got the first pick. We're bringing in a quarterback. Let's just wipe the slate clean and start over again. Like the Bears should have 2 years ago or last year, I guess, with Caleb Williams. I do wonder if we're going down that road of Brian Callahan too, but it's early. That's one of those. I'm saying Titans. That was one of the toughest assignments of week 1. Go to Denver, the altitude, play that Broncos defense week 1. That was ridiculously tough. I'm giving the Titans a pass. I'm not going to really dunk on them too hard, but yeah, there were some things in that game where you're like, ooh, this just is not a good look for Brian Callahan.
Callahan is no better a coach than Will Levis was a quarterback. That's all I'm saying. Frank Schwab, hit me up anytime about Brock Bowers because the Chiefs are in last place in the AFC West. We appreciate you hanging out with me. I'm going to be on one all week. Appreciate you hanging out this morning. We'll catch up soon. Aaron Rodgers got his revenge, and I have some crow to eat. Talk about it next. Yahoo Sports Daily.
You spoke about the meeting with Aaron Glenn on McAfee a few months ago. Beating him, is there significance in that since he basically told you to your face that he didn't think you were right for that team?
Yes, that's what he did.
So there's significance in beating him for you?
I was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets.
That's Aaron Rodgers speaking after the Steelers beat the Jets in a dramatic game that was absolutely incredible. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. 34-32. You see the stat line there. Incredible day by Aaron Rodgers. And two teams that we thought were going to be defined by their defensive abilities instead ended up in a shootout of just offensive explosion after offensive explosion. Revenge games for both sides because it's Aaron Rodgers against the Jets, but it's also Justin Fields against the Steelers. And Aaron Rodgers goes out and throws 4 tutties in his debut. Caroline, I don't know the best way to prepare crow, but I've got a full plate of it to eat because certainly I've spent months saying Aaron Rodgers is washed, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be any good. I'm not sure my opinion is going to drastically change. I thought the Steelers were going to win this game coming into the season. But my God, Aaron Rodgers looked spectacular. And I will always be one to stand up loudly at the podium and tell you when I'm right, and I will tell you when I was wrong. And Aaron Rodgers was everything in this game we haven't seen in years. I mean, that was a version of Aaron Rodgers that looked like the best of Aaron Rodgers, and it's going to be tantalizing. And I don't know. I'm going to say I don't know right now whether or not we should go all in and suddenly everything's great. It's like when you're back with your crazy ex after a couple of good dates. Is it really going to last forever, or is she still crazy? I don't know if this is going to sustain for Aaron Rodgers, but right now for 1 week, I know he was right. I was wrong. I owe the man an apology because he played absolutely lights out in this game.
He was vintage Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. And I don't know if he's just that much further removed from the Achilles injury. I don't know if revenge is just a hell of a drug and that he was taking heavy doses of it yesterday against the Jets. We just heard it right there. He said it felt great beating everyone in the Jets organization. Like, I called a big old BS last week whenever he said it's just another game. It's just another game. That, look, players can tell us those things, coaches can tell us those things, but we knew, anyone would take this game personally, especially Aaron Rodgers, who operates just a little bit differently. That game very obviously did mean a whole lot to Aaron Rodgers, and beating that Jets team and doing it in a 4-touchdown performance meant something to him. That was important to him. And as us, and love that for him, as us, for fans, I love that we got to see a kind of MVP type of Aaron Rodgers performance that we saw several years ago in his last couple of years with the Green Bay Packers. Again, I'm not saying he's an MVP, contender. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I'm saying that today, but I'm saying he looked like his MVP self. And that was just frankly very fun to watch. I also just want to extend my dearest condolences to Jets fans very quickly. I don't remember the last time that the Jets scored 32 points, but to do it in a losing effort is just knife to the heart, Fitzy.
Yeah, I mean, that's there is a large part of this that the most inexcusable portions of this game were the way the defense is played. And I do mean both defenses. Like Justin Fields getting out on a naked bootleg, get a touchdown when you knew that was the one thing they were going to do. Like, Justin Fields' ability to run all over the Steelers defense shocked me. And Fields played particularly well. If this game turns out, if the Jets make a kick at the end, all of a sudden the Steelers miss a kick, like all of a sudden we end up in a situation where, man, we're talking about Justin Fields and the resurgence of Justin Fields, 16 to 22 for 266, 3 touchdowns there. Justin Fields was very good in this game too. But if we're also going to take the overarching theme, both of these defenses were bad. And that was the surprising part of me for the Steelers, because certainly, as I've said coming into the season, we expected the Steelers defense to be really their calling card. It's going to get them through a quick early start, a hot early start, I should say, and then things fall off a little bit in my mind at the end. Well, that defense that we saw yesterday, that's pretty scary that they let the Jets go off on them like that.
100%. And especially, Aaron Glenn taking over as a defensive-minded head coach. So I think that both defenses giving up 30-plus points, that was a surprise to me. The Jets offense looking as good as it did with Elijah Vera-Tucker, their starting offensive lineman, out with an injury. I think that was a surprise to me. Justin Fields looked much better than I ever could have expected him to look. I think Aaron Rodgers exceeded my expectations. I wasn't expecting Aaron Rodgers to look like a shell of himself, against the Jets or really for the entirety of the season. I wasn't expecting that. I frankly just didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really know what percentage of Aaron Rodgers' former self he still had left. If you would have told me, hey, Aaron Rodgers is still 90% of who he was in his prime, I probably would have believed you. If he said Aaron Rodgers is about 50% of what he was, I probably would have believed you. I just frankly didn't know what to expect. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers and this Steelers team for the majority of a 17-game season are going to be able to put up 30-plus points. I don't know if the Steelers offense is going to be hitting on all cylinders like they were on Sunday. Maybe that's more so just the product of a really lousy Jets defense. That's kind of the fallacy of week one. We don't really know what is the story. Was it this because of that or that because of this? But I think that you can at least say that week one of the Aaron Rodgers experiment in Pittsburgh, a resounding success.
Sure. Week one was, but I'm going to be true to what I've been saying all summer, though. Like, we're going to fall in love with the Steelers in the early portion of the season, then we're going to fall out of love with them in the late portion of the season. Let's not get it twisted. A win at New York for this Steelers team is nowhere near as impressive as what Baltimore looked like in a loss to the Bills. Don't get it twisted.
Totally.
I don't care what the standings say today. The Ravens are still clearly a better team. Like, I'm not suddenly sitting here saying, oh, my God, the Steelers are headed to the playoffs. I'm not sitting here saying the Steelers are going to win their division. I'm not doing – the Steelers are not part of the class of the AFC. They just got a really good
of course
win.
Not.
And I think it's important to just delineate here. Like, there is a large separation in my mind between where the Ravens are, the Bills are, and where a team like the Steelers are. The Steelers were better than expected. And because of that, particularly Aaron Rodgers being better than expected, it's really easy for everybody to hop on the hype train and make it something it isn't. This is still a Steelers team that I think best case scenario is barely breaking above 500 and trying to crack their way into the playoffs. That's best case scenario for the Steelers. I don't think anything we saw yesterday changes my opinion on that.
Well, you said it was a really good win. I don't agree. It was a win. It was a win, and
Fair.
not a really good one. It was a little bit more difficult, probably, than we all anticipated, but it was a win, and a win is a win, and you take it, you survive, and you advance, and you live to die another day. I think, though, if this game had gone completely opposite of how it did go, if it was a low-scoring defensive slugfest that the Steelers were just barely able to eke by, like 9-6, we wouldn't be talking about the Steelers in the way that we are now. I think this is why we're all so attracted to offense, that offense is so sexy. And seeing Aaron Rodgers, a future Hall of Famer, an MVP in this league, a Super Bowl champion quarterback, do what he did. It's so much easier to fall in love with a Steelers team that just barely squeaked by in a high-scoring effort versus barely squeaking by in a low-scoring effort.
Yeah, this is a Steelers team that let Justin Fields go 16-22 for 218 in the air with the touchdown. It's a Steelers team that also let the Jets run for 182 yards on the ground over the course of this and gave up 2 rushing touchdowns to Justin Fields. It is not all sunshine and roses, but it was a big win nonetheless. We got a lot of NFL football to get into. We will continue to react to all of it, but Angel Reese, suspended for the first half, didn't even get in the game last night, and it raises a serious question we'll ask next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Breaking, Angel Reese will not play in the first half of Sky Aces on Sunday because of statements detrimental to the team, the Sky announced. Already suspended for Friday's matchup from the Fever for receiving her 8th technical foul of the season. That's from a couple of days ago on Yahoo Sports, and it turns out that she didn't play in the first half or the second half. The second half, according to coaches, due to a back issue. No Angel Reese in that game, coming off of a suspension, coming off of a technical foul suspension. And it raises a lot of questions about one of the better players in the WNBA. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz at Yahoo Sports Daily. We'll get back to the NFL in just a minute. But this was significant last night, Caroline, because no Angel raises a question about what's worth it. And, like, we all know this in sports. There's a certain line where your productivity makes it worth whatever you do. And we know this in every sport. You can be a terrible person. You can be a criminal. You can be all of those things. And if your productivity is high enough, everybody will simply say, that's fine. It's great. We get that. you can also just be a distraction and people will take it. And I go back to like the 90s Bulls. Dennis Rodman was a distraction, but it didn't matter because he was Dennis Rodman and it was part of the Bulls. I am at this spot when we look at Angel Reese, and I'm just wondering, why is any of it worth it? It's not to me, because while Angel Reese is a very good rebounder, I don't think that Angel Reese, as a total player with everything in her game, brings enough reward to what she brings in the conversation you have to have. Like every Chicago, the Sky suck. Fine, the Sky suck. But the Sky players have spent how much time answering questions over the last week about Angel Reese's comments yet again? Like it's constant. You constantly have to deal with it. And I don't think the play on the court actually makes any of it worth it. At this point, I don't think Angel Reese is a top 10 player in the WNBA. I don't think she's worth the distraction that comes with having to answer questions about what she has to say. And I don't think the attitude in general is something that anybody benefits from. So to me, as much as I respect Angel Reese's game, I'm stepping back and saying the star power ain't worth it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to have a player in your organization, especially a struggling organization, especially an organization that if they're not good, nobody's really going to care. You don't want the number one storyline to always be about what your star player is saying in the media. It gets old, it's so tiring, and everyone in that front office is probably walking on eggshells, just terrified for the next thing that Angel Reese is going to say in a press conference. And of course, the most recent things that she did say was essentially calling out her teammates for not being good enough and essentially saying to the entire world, like, hey, if you don't get better players around me, I think I'm going to be here for, the short haul. And I don't have any problem with a star player calling out the team for saying, we aren't good enough. We need to do better. I will do whatever it takes for us to become a winning basketball team. But it felt very accusatory. It felt very pointing the finger to her teammates. And look, we're in the middle of the season right now. Like, to make those comments in front of the media, in front of cameras, and not behind closed doors with your front office and with your coach in the middle of the season, I think is inconceivable. But you say, you don't think Angel Reese is a top 10 player in the NBA. I said last week, the WNBA. I said last week I think that she is, and I'll double down on that. Look, I understand that Angel Reese is by no means an elite shooter by any stretch of the imagination. I understand that. But I don't think that you have to be an elite shooter to have impact on the court. I mean, Angel Reese leads the WNBA in rebounds per game. She has 23 double-doubles this season. That leads the WNBA, even though she's played 7 fewer games than Alyssa Thomas, who has the second most double-doubles in the league, and she has 22. Angel Reese, in 2 seasons in the WNBA, has 49 double-doubles. That is more than Asia Wilson, one of the best defenders in the WNBA, had in her first 5 seasons combined. So Angel Reese's impact is shown. It's just not necessarily pulling up from, the logo and pulling up from 3. So her impact is different. I think that when we talk about the top 10 players in the WNBA, no, she's not in the top 5, but I think that she deserves to be in the conversation, depending on what you value in a certain player's game and their impact on the court. But I'm saying I think she's a top 10 player in the WNBA. You can argue with me all day long. That's fine. We can have the debate. We can have the discussion. But if you ask me, which 10 players in the WNBA would you want to choose to build a franchise around? I can't choose Angel Reese. Even if I do think that her, caliber of player and her skill set might fit that, she's just too much of a distraction off the court. That she says too much, she puts her foot in her mouth way too many times, and that if you are a young and rebuilding team like the Chicago Sky is, you just can't deal with those kinds of off-the-court distractions coming at the hands of your star player.
I will double down on that and say part of my issue is that oftentimes when asked about it or given the opportunity to correct it, she plays the victim. And to me, if we're talking about how you construct a roster, I had the chance years ago when I was touring. I was in a band that nobody ever heard of, and I opened for Kenny Rogers. And just sitting back talking to Kenny, who was a legend, one thing he always preached to all of us about just how you act on the road is he said, understand, everybody says perception is reality. That's not enough of the statement. You have to understand that perception is the reality you live in part because it's the reality you created. That's one thing I learned from him that I've taken in my entire life. At some point, you can't just turn around and say, why is everyone doing this to me? You have to turn around as an individual and say, what am I doing that's creating part of this chaos. What Angel has never understood is that she creates the chaos by the things that she says and the way that she acts. Now, is she a top 10 player? To me, I understand your rebounding numbers, and I think that, yes, she's an elite rebounder. The eye test tells me that part of that comes because she's cleaning up her own mess at the rim over and over and over again. Nobody can figure out how to get her out of the way. Yes, she's a great rebounder. There's no doubt about that. But my God, what would those numbers look like if she finished at the rim better? Like, I see that, and I think, man, it's hard for me just watching that. It's hard for me to put that in even in the same category. You mentioned Asia Wilson and her success. Like, I watch Angel play and I watch Asia play, and to me, they are not in the same category, right? Like, Asia's so
And I'm not
much
saying
more
she is
fluid in what
Asia.
she's. No, I know, 100%, and I don't want
Just for the
anyone on
record.
social media to twist it into that. That is not the conversation here. I think part of the thing is that, like, she does one thing incredibly well. She's so good on the boards. I can't make that one dimension into a top 10 player. I think there are, top 10, by the way, I always qualify. You and I can agree on this. When people say top 10, I'm not sitting here making a list and saying, well, she's probably 10. Like, top 10 is a feel. You might be 11, you might be 10, you might be 9. It's a feel to people. For me, my feel has a hard time with the eye test of watching Angel, and I watch so much W. I have a hard time when I watch her because it just doesn't look as easy or as graceful or as capable at the rim as many of the other players that I would put in the top 10.
In fairness, in Angel Reese's rookie season, when she did lead the league in rebounds, as she does this year, if you took out all of her, which she quoted, or she has trademarked, me bounds, she would still be second in the league in rebounds. If you took out all of her own me bounds, and if you took out everyone else's me bounds, she would still lead the league in rebounds. I feel like that is a narrative that I kind of want to squash. I also understand that there are a lot of people out there that do not like Angel Reese. I understand that. I'm not here to tell you that you have to love her or that you have to like her or that you have to hear her out, because there are a lot of things that Angel Reese has done in the past that I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's just a stupid decision. Why are you doing that? You are hurting yourself and you're hurting your team. But just because you don't like her personally, I'm not saying this to you, Fitzy, I'm just saying this to the general public. Just because you don't like her does not mean that she's a bad player. Like, I think that we have to add nuance and we have to add context that she is top 20 in scoring in the W, that she is 17th in the league in assists, that she is 10th in steals, that she leads in double-doubles, that she leads in rebounds. That those are actual statistical numbers that you can take away from her game. Now, her personality, her off-the-court decorum, that's a completely different story, but I think still relevant within the context of this discussion.
And I will say, until I'm blue in the face, I think she's one of the better young players in the league. She is a top 20 player in the league. There's no doubt. I wouldn't put her in the top 10, and I wouldn't build my franchise around her. And to your point, I neither like nor dislike Angel Reese. I've never met her. I've never hung out with her. I've never really spent any time with her. I simply think that she's a part of creating the problems that she lives in, and her life will get a lot easier when she figures that out and accepts that, and then figures out how to handle her platform in a way that doesn't create that chaos. We'll get back to the NFL. We got tons to get to in hour number 2, including Daniel Jones crushing it. We'll think about it next. Yahoo Sports Stand. Welcome back to hour number 2. It's a Monday. It's more jazz. You feel more jazzed, admit it. The first Monday of NFL season, everybody wakes up. There's no Sunday scaries on Sunday night.
Who does it?
Sunday night football. I mean, you wake up Monday, you got the good goods. You're walking into work. You got swaggy walk, feel good. That might also
I had
be
some
because
fall
my
weather
favorite
this
team won.
morning. Pumpkin spice lattes are back. It's just
okay.
injected into my veins, Fitz. We are back. We are back, baby.
You're right. I actually wore a hoodie all day yesterday, and it felt so good. We got a ton of football to get to, obviously, throughout the course of this hour, but we will start this hour like we start every hour with 3 points. I am hijacking the first point, however, because I'm mad. LeBron James is now officially a Hall of Famer. He received his Hall of Fame jacket because of the induction of the 2008 Redeem team that won the gold medal at the Olympics. That team was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and as such, Chris Paul and LeBron James were both given jackets, even though they are active players. This drives me crazy. I take nothing away from both of these men, and LeBron particularly. There's no doubt he's a Hall of Famer. Absolutely no doubt he's a Hall of Famer. But he's still playing the game, and there's a process. And to me, that process matters. When you think about what NFL players talk about when the guy comes and knocks on the door and they find out they're a Hall of Famer and the wait that you have to go through to wait. I had the opportunity at the Super Bowl to talk to Eli the day that he found out he wasn't a Hall of Famer. And you just know what the process is like for every single player. There's no doubt that LeBron is a first ballot basketball Hall of Famer, and we're just waiting for that process. But everybody's had to wait. Certainly, there was no doubt that Michael Jordan was a Hall of Famer, but he had to wait for his jacket. Now, I understand it's not his fault that his team was inducted, but without being a hater to anybody in this, can't you simply take that jacket and frame it and hold it as a reason that everyone can be excited for the eventual induction that are coming from players that are still on the court today? Takes nothing away from the greatness. In fact, for me, LeBron is my GOAT. So I'm not sitting here coming into any of this as a LeBron hater. I'm coming into all of this as a process lover. To me, what happens when the Hall of Fame comes is that you get to go through this thing that joins you with everybody else, that landmark accomplished something that fundamentally changed the sport that you play forever. That's what being a Hall of Famer is about. It's about the cementing of your legacy for the rest of time. Yeah, LeBron's already done everything that he would ever need to do, and he's been a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer for a long time. And maybe this is all just schematics, but it's disrespectful to every other player that's ever had to go through the process to put that jacket on early. Frankly, just being handed the jacket, sit with it, stand with it, have it framed behind you. I don't care. But putting it on right now is just outright weird for every other great player that we've stood up there and watched and said, hey, on their last game, I can't wait to watch that player eventually don their jacket. It's not LeBron's fault he's in this situation, and I'm not going to blame him. But the entire situation feels gross to me to have anyone still active in the sport wearing a Hall of Fame jacket. And now, every single time we watch LeBron play this year, he's going to have to be addressed as current Hall of Famer LeBron James. That is a dangerous precedent to set for the rest of the NBA, for the rest of time. And as great as LeBron is, and as important as the Redeem team was, no one player is bigger than the process, including the King. All right, that's my first point. Caroline, what do you have for me as your first point?
You make a fair point, Fitzy, but I do have to say, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it in the slightest. So I'll let you cool off with a nice fresh honeydews because I'm going to take us to the U.S. Open. Carlos Alcaraz beat Jannik Sinner 6-2, 6-2, 3-6, 6-1, and 6-4 in the 2025 U.S. Open final. He seized his second U.S. Open title and sixth Grand Slam. Just a reminder to everybody keeping score at home, Carlos Alcaraz is only 22 years old. So he is the second youngest man to win that many Grand Slams by the age of 22. And the victory returned him to the number one spot in the world, real estate that Jannik Sinner previously has taken up for the last year. And it's also reaffirmed and just added another chapter into this spicy rivalry between these two young stars. This marks their third consecutive Grand Slam final in only one season, and Alcaraz now leads their head-to-head 10-5. And on Sunday, he was absolutely clinical. His service improved. He played decidedly and athletically, all while dropping just one set in the entire tournament. So the good news is, though, this rivalry is not going anywhere. Alcaraz and Sinner combined have swept all 8 of the major titles in 2024 and 2025, a perfect split for each. This time, Alcaraz may have won the battle, but the war is not over. The rivalry continues, and I think tennis fans all across the world can appreciate that we are witnessing greatness, and we are witnessing a great rivalry between Sinner and Alcaraz.
Can I be the first person ever to say you can't escape Alcaraz? I'm sure that's a wildly new joke.
It's a good one.
Never
That's
been made
a good one.
before. You're welcome. All right.
Good
Let's
job,
keep
Fitz.
Thank you.
Fitz
Thank
gets
you
a
so
round of
much.
applause for that.
You know what?
one.
You know what?
Yes, of course.
My favorite football team is 1-0, and I'm in a good mood. So I will take that as a completely complimentary laugh, and not at all as
It is.
Thank you
Pat
so much.
yourself on the back.
We're going to keep the tennis theme going as we get to the NFL, because tennis is on our mind with the Alcaraz win. So we're going to take a look back at the week 1 results that had us looking at each other and saying, you can't be serious. I'm, of course, referring back to the great clip of John McEnroe that we all know. And Director Josh has got it for us. So Director Josh is going to be the MVP of this segment. Although that hair might actually be the MVP. Next time I'll get a wig. Let's see, Josh. Let's let the world hear it. You can't be serious, man. What do we got?
You cannot be serious.
God, one more time, Josh. I just want to hear it again.
You cannot be serious.
I need to take that with me, and the next time I'm out in public and somebody's got their cell phone on speakerphone and they're out there, and I'm talking to you. If you're watching this right now, and in fact, if you're at the gym and you've got this on speakerphone, shame on you. Don't turn it off. Just turn the volume down, okay? Like, put your headphones in. If you're out there in the airport.
Put headphones in.
Just headphones. Just headphones.
You cannot be serious.
Josh, I'm gonna keep you on speed dial, and every time somebody's doing that, I'm gonna just text you and be like, "Hey, man," and then we'll just play this. Okay, so we'll go through the week 1 results, and we will figure this out. Josh, hit the sound.
You cannot be serious.
Daniel Jones made history in his Colts debut, and
like the good kind of history too.
Oh, see this dance? This is the he made history dance, and this is the I told you so dance. I don't know what the hell the dance is. I'm just telling you, one person. And I think maybe in all of media, one person has been absolutely planting the Daniel Jones flag and the Colts flag. And what happened? 33-8. That's the final score. In fact, Daniel Jones becomes the first quarterback this century to lead his team to a score on every single possession. Daniel Jones wasn't good. Nay, Daniel Jones was spectacular, and I called it. What do we think was going to happen here? Shane Steichen got his job because he was a great offensive coordinator with a quarterback that has a particular set of skills. Now he gets a quarterback that I think has some of those same skills in a certain way, and you're developing them with somebody that, last time I checked, did go to Duke. He's a pretty smart guy. What do you know? All of a sudden, the Giants fans watched Russell Wilson look like Daniel Jones, while Daniel Jones went out and looked like a world beater. Daniel Jones may not end up being epic, but I think Daniel Jones is set to have a big year. And week 1, he went out and embarrassed the Dolphins. I, Caroline Fenton, am taking my victory lap. McEnroe, give it to me again, McEnroe.
You cannot be serious.
Woo! I'm on one.
I just want everybody to know that Fitz has been on one since we logged on almost 2 hours ago this morning. He's been, singing songs at the break. He's been dancing. He's been cheesing all morning long. I know that we're very beloved Raiders. One. And I know that being able to have this Daniel Jones victory lap has to contribute to it, because I will give you all the credit in the world. I have just been totally poo-pooing anyone's Daniel Jones party. Mm-hmm. Because every time someone says, I don't know, Daniel Jones, could be good, I say, Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones. That's really all I feel like I can say or have to say. I was wrong. You were right. Week 1. Maybe it has something more to do with the Dolphins than it does Daniel Jones and the Colts. I don't know, but we'll see. It's week 1, and so you can throw your week 1 party, my friend. Josh hit it.
You cannot be serious.
Thank you very much. Jaxson Dart was not allowed to speak with the media this past weekend. You cannot be serious, New York Giants. You cannot be serious. I understand that throwing a rookie quarterback to the New York media is like throwing, meat to the wolves. I get it. I understand it. But this isn't college, and we don't hide freshmen from the media anymore. Jaxson Dart is a big boy. Jaxson Dart makes a whole lot of money to play this game. I don't care if he's the starter. I don't care if he's the backup. I don't care if he's the third string punter. No disrespect to third string punters. The media want to talk to a certain player, they should have every single right to talk to a certain player. I don't think that there should be any sort of kind of sacred goose in this situation. The whole way that Brian Daboll and the Giants organization have been talking about Jaxson Dart since the beginning of the season and kind of been hiding Jaxson Dart from the media, it all feels very strange and very odd, and I don't understand why. Like, let the guy talk to the media. The media want to talk to the guy who's probably going to be the future franchise quarterback for this organization. I think everybody in New York hopes that he is the future franchise quarterback in that organization. To just hide him away and lock him up and throw away the key and say, no, he's ours, we're keeping him private, feels very, very strange and pretty JV, in my opinion.
So I got into a little bit of a Twitter conversation about this yesterday with one of the guys from The Fan in New York, because he was saying that, the Giants aren't in the wrong here and that there was nothing to gain for Jaxson Dart speaking to a reporter other than a gotcha moment. I disagree with that. And I've really thought about it, and I've tried to be calculated with this. I think there's he was ready to talk, and a reporter was ready to talk to him. I think there's a real opportunity to talk to him about what he's learned, what it felt like to stand on the sideline. What did he take away from a game where he couldn't actually contribute, but he's there with still a role? Like, how has that changed? What has he figured out in the last 2 weeks? How does he feel about his future? What does he still need to develop? Like, these are all important things that I think could have been gathered. We look so much at media now as gotcha. And I understand that there's a huge section of media that is that, but I also think that you do have to at some point look at it and say, what's everybody's job? If Jaxson Dart is willing to speak and there's a media personality that wants to speak to him or a journalist that wants to speak to him, sure, they could be out there trying to get him. And Jaxson Dart has seen and been around enough football, especially it's not like he came from a small school with no platform. He understands how to handle media, but even through all of it, you can't protect him from the New York media forever. And I do think that there was something valuable that could have been learned. We're sitting here today speculating about what the future of the Giants quarterback position looks like. Would it not be fair to talk to one of the people impacted by that speculation to find out how the speculation impacts him or what he specifically heard he needs to work on, what his path looks like it is, what the trajectory is according to the coaches? Like, there's plenty to be learned if he's willing to talk. And if all he gives you are stock quarterback answers, then great, he did his job. If he gives you a gotcha moment, he'll learn from it. It will pass. But there is a real chance to learn from the player. So I think, honestly, it's a disservice to Giants fans that the Giants didn't make their young quarterback available, Caroline.
It is a disservice to Giants fans. Everyone wants to know Jaxson Dart. We have the Football Vibes Index where we rank teams just based off of vibes alone. And I put the Giants' vibes going into this season at the top of the NFL because those fans are so excited about the possibility of Jaxson Dart. They have so much optimism over Jaxson Dart. If you're the Giants, don't you want to ride as much optimism and positivity as you have? There haven't been a whole lot of optimism and positivity with the New York Giants over the last couple of years. And if you can't trust Jaxson Dart to stay out of a gotcha moment with a reporter, what does that say about your trust in him, period? I will go back to he is a grown man. He is a big boy. He is now a professional quarterback in the city of New York. At some point, you gotta let the baby bird fly the nest. It just feels very strange withholding, any sort of information from the media, any sort of something that fans can grasp onto for their young quarterback.
All right, let's go to the next one. Let's get McEnroe involved again. John, what you got for us?
You cannot be serious.
You cannot. You simply cannot.
You cannot be serious. The Bengals had 7 net yards in the second half versus Cleveland and won. I'm not 100% sure that Joe Burrow wasn't actually killed in the middle of the field by one of the hits he took that's all over social media. The Browns held the Bengals to 7 net yards in the second half and lost that football game. In a game where, frankly, for all the conversation we spent all summer yelling about quarterbacks, Caroline, like, Joe Flacco played really well. The Browns offense put up the yards. Like, the Bengals defense still looks like trash. The Browns, I cannot believe Cleveland found a way to lose that football game.
Does feel like, everyone in Cincinnati can kind of breathe a sigh of relief that the week 1 and early season bugaboos at least have been solved for this week. But I don't think anyone in Cincinnati feels that great about what they saw against the Browns. I mean, I think that was more so the Bengals just were able to beat a lousy Browns team and look lousy in the process. Like, yes, you're 1-0 in Cincinnati, and in the National Football League, that is all that matters. By any means necessary, whatever it takes, the ugly wins count just the same as the really flashy wins. The Green Bay Packers are 1-0, just like the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't feel any better about the Cincinnati Bengals coming out of that game, even in a win. It feels like the slow starts, the rough offense that we are accustomed to seeing from the Bengals in week 1 continued. The outcome is just different. So it's hard to feel how to feel here about the Bengals. Yeah, you won, but you did not look very good in the process.
Yeah, and isn't the whole reason that Joe Burrow put himself at risk in the preseason, taking some hits we thought were questionable, was because they wanted to have a better rhythm going into week 1, and then they had no rhythm. If Cleveland's going to be out looking for a new kicker. There's no doubt, as they were absolutely their kicker was the demise of this game. They should have won it, and it's heartbreaking for Browns fans. But to your point, I actually walked away from this game feeling better about the Browns than I thought I would, and worse about the Bengals than I thought I would. And that's just because of the way this game looked and the game script that happened on it. Joe Flacco played really well. I really was impressed by Joe Flacco. So we'll see what that means. Let's get McEnroe involved for one more. Come on, John.
You cannot be serious.
I will take the floor here, Fitzy, because I have been saying just that from our friend John McEnroe as it pertains to this story since the moment I found out about it. Bill Belichick, hey, UNC won. Congratulations to Bill and the Tar Heels there. So after North Carolina's win over Charlotte on Saturday, Bill Belichick addressed the media and said, quote, "It is clear that I am not welcome in New England at their facility, so they are not welcome at ours." Of course, in response to the fact that Patriots scouts and anyone in the New England Patriots organization is not welcome to come scout at North Carolina practices or games. Like, are you kidding me? Bill Belichick, you cannot actually be serious. And this is even compounded coming just days after Robert Kraft spoke with the media and said, we would love to build a statue for Bill Belichick. We would love to have him back here for a ceremony and to celebrate him, the amount of celebration that he deserves for winning 6 Super Bowls in New England. Robert Kraft is saying, hey, look, yeah, come on back, Bill. Sorry it didn't end well. Sorry it didn't work out in the end, but we still had a lovely time together. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick is prioritizing his own personal vendettas against Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots rather than actually building a football program. That it seems like he is far more concerned with sticking it to the Kraft family than he is actually winning games at North Carolina. He is actively doing his players a disservice when he is shutting out NFL scouts from seeing the potential talent on his roster. If I'm any sort of kid that has any sort of NFL aspirations, why would I go play for Bill Belichick when he would actively be hurting my chances at getting drafted into the National Football League? You have got to be kidding me. Bill Belichick, someone who placed importance on winning more than any other coach that we had seen in the NFL, now all of a sudden is being petty, doesn't care as much about winning, doesn't care about developing his players more than he cares about getting a leg up on the New England Patriots. Like, you have got to be kidding me. It's embarrassing.
The very man that made On to Cincinnati famous is still hung up on his ex, and his ex is the Patriots. All right, they've got a surprise for us. I don't know what this is going to be, but they've got a surprise for us. So.
You cannot be serious.
Oh my God. That's good. I don't care what you say.
Oh my gosh, that's
good.
Incredible. Fitz, you need to go get a perm today. As soon as you possibly can. Run to the hair salon, get a perm, get a headband, and show up tomorrow like that because you look fantastic in that photo. My goodness.
If I didn't already know what my Halloween costume was going to be for this show, I would come as John McEnroe. But I've already figured it out, and I'm not veering that. But John McEnroe is now in the conversation. That would be Jason McEnroe or John McEnfitz. I don't know. Either way, I like
We'll
John
workshop
McEnfitz. Okay.
Jason
we'll keep working on it.
McEnfitz?
Jason McEnfitz? That feels pretty good. All right.
Could be onto something.
More photoshops of me coming up in the show. God, I hope. But in the meantime, should the Chiefs trade for Tyreek right now? We'll talk about it next. Yahoo Sports Daily. We all saw the images. Star wide receiver Tyreek Hill angry on the sideline as Miami struggled. Now, we've covered the Colts side of this game and taken a victory lap, but the Dolphins offense looked utterly hapless on Sunday. Tyreek Hill to 4 catches for 40 yards, and frankly, it didn't even feel like it was that much. Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. I just keep watching this thinking this is obvious. All right, Caroline, the Dolphins suck. Let's just be clear about this. Dolphins,
Yes.
Miami, your season's done. Your team stinks. All right, I know it's only 1 week. Your team stinks. You've got a wide receiver that's already requested a trade and is pitching a fit on the sidelines that is obviously not happy. There's another team in the AFC that now desperately needs help at wide receiver. Caroline, as we sit right now, I absolutely believe the Kansas City Chiefs should be making a call and doing whatever it takes to trade for Tyreek Hill.
I do not disagree with you in the slightest. And then we just saw that video and Tyreek Hill is shaking his hands. He's so visibly upset. It's week 1. Like, that's in mid-season form. The level of frustration that it looked like Tyreek had with this offense, with Tua, it's week 1. I don't think that's getting any better. So I think there's 2 sides of this. One, should the Chiefs trade for Tyreek Hill? I think 1,000% absolutely. Because Xavier Worthy, his status is up in the air, of course, with the dislocated shoulder. He and Travis Kelce collided against the Chargers. You don't get Rashee Rice back until later in the season. And the Chiefs have an absolute gauntlet before they even get Rashee Rice back. And that's not to mention, Rashee Rice will probably have at least a little bit of a ramping up period. The Chiefs feel like they can get themselves right back into the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs don't want to find themselves dug in such a hole in the first 6 to 7 weeks of the season that now the last 10 weeks of the season feel incredibly uncomfortable. Now, I'm not saying the Chiefs will miss the playoffs, but I am saying there was a certain level of lack of explosiveness that we saw from that Chiefs offense against the Chargers. Now, the Chiefs tend to play with their food a little bit. They don't look as great in the beginning of the season as they do at the end of this season. I understand that. But this time, it's not just, oh, the Chiefs are holding, everything back a little bit in the beginning of the season. At this point, it is the Chiefs have a serious lack of talent at the wide receiver position. Now, that's one side. Should the Chiefs do it? I think yes, 100%. 2, would the Dolphins do it? I think they're going to get to a position where they don't even have a choice, Fitz. They don't have a choice but to trade Tyreek Hill because it doesn't look like the Dolphins are getting any better, and it doesn't look like that relationship is going to be repaired over the next couple of weeks either.
Yeah, that's the hard part about it is like at some point, what do you do with somebody that's obviously unhappy and there's nothing you can do to make him happy? And I'll add one other element for the Chiefs. The eye test matters here. So if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs organizationally, I watched the Broncos, and I know their defense is going to be great. Bo Nix was terrible. I think Bo Nix is going to be a problem this year, but the Broncos' defense was great. I just got beat by the Chargers. The Raiders look better than I thought they were going to look if I'm the Chiefs. And then I'm looking at what I saw Sunday night. You cannot tell me anybody within the Kansas City Chiefs organization watch Sunday Night Football and feel like their team belongs today based on what we've seen right now in the same conversation as the Ravens or the Bills. They do not. You have to have somebody that can bail you out. And I understand that that's Ben Mahomes, rightfully so. But that's even more part of why I love the idea of Tyreek Hill. I said last week, I loved Adam Thielen going back to the Vikings because he knows the offense, he knows the system, he knows the city, he knows everything. He's comfortable. Tyreek Hill is the same. Now, maybe he's lost some of that top-end speed, and that is the thing that really separates him. But if you're the Chiefs, you don't know when Xavier Worthy's going to come back. You have no idea. Right now, there are some reports that depending on what this process looks like, he could require surgery. Maybe, according to some reports, he could miss the whole season. We don't know yet. What we do know is that as it stands right now, the Chiefs are not top shelf in the AFC. I understand their resume. I understand their history. I also understand what we saw last night. And we saw a Bills team that can absolutely score from anywhere. We saw a Ravens team that I think is going to be a nightmare matchup offensively. Over the course of the weekend, we saw a Chiefs team that looked slow and late and incapable of really getting a lot of separation. We saw a Chiefs team that looks like they're going to put everything on Superman's back, and they're going to hope that it's like the newest Superman movie. Sure, he's going to get his ass kicked for an hour and a half, but he's going to win in the end. I don't know if that works in this AFC. So if I'm the Chiefs, I have to look around and say, hey, we are in a Super Bowl window every single year. We've got a quarterback that puts us in that window. We have a coach that puts us in that window. We do not have the playmakers to be in that window. Do something about it, and do something about it right now. Tyreek Hill is going to be the best option available to them. They should start making the phone calls, even if it means they have to be too aggressive in what they pay.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Superman. He's the best quarterback in the National Football League. But sometimes there are even things that even Superman can't overcome. And losing your top two receivers, and Rashee Rice, at least for a portion of the season, and Xavier Worthy's, availability being in question, that might be a little bit too much for Superman to overcome, especially with Travis Kelce in his 35-year-old season. And of course, we have the obvious element here of Tyreek Hill's familiarity with the Chiefs offense and with Patrick Mahomes. So I think we're in agreement, right? It is obvious that that's what the Chiefs should do. But will the Chiefs do it? Because you bring it up that Tyreek Hill is probably not, who he was 3 to 4 seasons ago. His thing is speed. That's his game. He's the cheetah. That's something that you lose over time. That speed goes away once you kind of hit that 30-year-old threshold, give or take a couple of years. Well, Tyreek Hill is now in his 31-year-old season. So I think it's fair to expect regression since he had regression last year from the 2023 season. Tyreek Hill, though, is not any cheaper just because he's less of who he was at his peak. Tyreek Hill is still owed $30 million this season. Tyreek Hill is still, the 7th highest paid receiver in the National Football League? Are the Chiefs willing to pay that? Because look, I understand the Chiefs have won their fair share of games, but the Hunt family doesn't have a history of dishing out the most amount of cash. So even though this is what the Chiefs should do, even though Tyreek Hill would add that layer of explosiveness that the Chiefs were grossly missing against the Chargers in week 1, even though I think Tyreek Hill would make Patrick Mahomes' life so much easier while they wait for those other 2 receivers to come back, are the Chiefs willing to pay for it?
Well, and they'd have to do some strategic work on the salary cap, too. Like, they don't really have the cash there. Obviously, they could do some funny money changes around Patrick Mahomes' deal to try and find it. But you're right. It's a combination of salary cap damage, and then it's a combination of outlet of cash that they'd have to come up with right away. So there are those elements. I guess, how bad do you want to win? Like, I can't. If the reason that the Chiefs don't acquire Tyreek Hill is because they don't think he has it left in the tank, fine. All right, they're the Chiefs. They've earned benefit of the doubt. If the reason is salary cap or money, that's a joke. Because the salary cap is something you can wiggle around, and money is something that these guys make at just an absorbent amount of money, right? So Like, to me, if the Chiefs aren't acquiring Tyreek Hill because it's tough on the salary cap or because it's tough on their financials, then they're no better than the Bengals, right? And we make fun of those organizations. When you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Spags as your defensive coordinator, you're supposed to be a Super Bowl team. After week 1, they were not a Super Bowl team. So if they don't do it, then they're no better than Cincinnati. And the other part of this, Carolina, is like, I think Tyreek should walk into the office today and say, screw it, I'm out. I don't want to be here. I want to be a Kansas City Chief. He should make this happen because it's the only place that he can go and immediately be the best of Tyreek. And if we're being honest, I think some of the public perception on Tyreek has dulled a little bit. I think some of the way that we view him as a player is different right now. If he wants people to still see him as the cheetah, and if he wants people to still just absolutely cower in fear at the thought of Tyreek Hill running open down the field, the one place he can go and immediately do that is Kansas City. He should be walking into the Dolphins today and say, you know what? You don't want me, but I don't want you. And it's obvious. When you watch the way that he acts on the sidelines, it is obvious that the organization and the player do not respect each other anymore. And I don't think that respect comes back. So you have to just come in and say, no, I'm going to do this because I think it's what's best for me. And weirdly, I think it would be best for the Dolphins too.
Yeah, we see, a commenter here saying Tyreek should have never left the Chiefs. It cost him his legacy and theirs to a certain degree. I can't get on board with that entirely because I don't think it cost him his legacy. But I mean, if Tyreek Hill was on those Chiefs teams that, the Chiefs team last year, let's just say, like how differently could that year have gone, that Super Bowl have gone? And look, the Eagles were so dominant in that game, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. But it is fair to say that when an elite player or a great player who I think we will view as one of the greats for many, many years to come goes to a team that doesn't win anything, then yeah, we do view them differently. That team wins absolutely contribute to an individual player's legacy, which is why I agree with you that I think it's pretty obvious that Tyreek Hill should demand a trade if he cares about winning, because it is very clear from what we saw in 1 week, and maybe a 1 week sample size isn't fair to make this kind of evaluation, but I'm going to do it anyways. The Dolphins do not look like they will win very many football games this year. So of course it makes sense for any receiver and any player in the league to say, hey, yeah, Coach, I'm going to knock on your door here because I want to go to the Chiefs. Like, I want to go win in Kansas City. So, yes, absolutely, I think he should. And I think the outburst that we saw on the sideline on Sunday was maybe the first step of that, or one of the first of many steps to come of Tyreek expressing his frustration with being in Miami. And as I pointed out, Tyreek Hill is 31 years old. In wide receiver years, that's getting up there, right? He's not getting any younger. If Tyreek Hill cares about winning, he will demand a trade. All it takes the Dolphins to do, though, is say, no, sorry, you're under contract. We're not trading you. That's not the smartest approach if you're the Miami Dolphins. But let's not forget that just because a player wants to be traded or demands a trade does not mean that they will be traded.
All fair. I think the YouTube comment that it changed the legacy is an accurate one. I believe it. Because you look at, like, if they put the stat up, and I'll see if we can get it up again. But when you look at the Patrick Mahomes numbers, when he had Tyreek versus when he doesn't, the most important one that stands out to me, the passer rating from 2018 to 2022 for Patrick Mahomes was 117.1. That's number 1 in the NFL, right? There's the numbers here you see in front of him. The passer rating over the last couple of years without Tyreek Hill, 44.8, 33 out of 34. All right, when you talk about that's on plays 20 yards downfield, what does that tell you? The Chiefs lost everything in the explosiveness of their offense. And as I keep saying, one of the best parts of Mahomes' games is he forces defenders to make decisions. While he's running around, you got to cover for 10 minutes back there, what it feels like, right? If you got to cover Tyreek Hill that long, if he has any of that burst left over the course of the last couple of years, I think we're talking about a wide receiver and a quarterback combo that's won back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls. And you can't tell me, in my mind, 3 straight Super Bowls for a quarterback and a wide receiver, that's a different legacy. I think Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins has absolutely impacted the legacy simply because of the rings that he would have accumulated with Patrick Mahomes, with Andy Reid. And he went out and he got paid, and the Chiefs made a decision. They didn't think they needed him. And To be clear, the Chiefs have invested since then, right? They tried to pay big money for a wide receiver. Didn't work. They drafted Xavier Worthy. Health is going to be an issue on there. They drafted Rashee Rice. He's suspended. The Chiefs have tried to put resources into it. They've never replaced Tyreek Hill. I believe that if Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes would have stayed together, we'd be looking at several more championships, and that in and of itself changes a legacy. So I hear you, but I think the reuniting of this is the one way that we can find out, and it becomes sort of the great story everybody wants to fall in love with. We'll keep breaking it down. A lot of AFC action, including, one team that's 1-0. Pete Carroll gets his first win with the spectacular Raiders. We'll talk about it next. The oldest coach in NFL history just got a win in his Raiders head coaching debut. Pete Carroll becomes the first coach to win his debut with every franchise he's coached with, at least 4 different franchises in his history. So, Pete Carroll, big day. The Raiders take down the Patriots, and Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. I'll try and be measured here. No, I won't. I'm a fan. We all know I'm a fan. But here's the thing.
Let it fly, Fitz. Let it go.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The Raiders beat the snot out of the Patriots. It was 20-13 was the final score. But this Raiders team went out and they looked really good. And this is, again, where I'll say the eye test matters, right? Geno came out, played really well. It wasn't the best day running the football, but Geno played really well. The Raiders looked explosive. The Raiders defense played way better. And Caroline, the first thing that I walked away from every year, we look at teams that we're asking who's going to take a meteoric leap. And as I say, walking into the season, I don't know which team that's going to be. I don't know if it's the Raiders. But I do know this is a different culture. You can tell when you watch a team if it's just momentum or if it's a culture change. There was an element here where I thought the biggest part of the Raiders-Patriots game, this is 2 teams that people are falling in love with taking a big old leap forward. The question is, which team was going to look different on the field? And the answer to that was the Raiders. For all the credit that Mike Vrabel was getting for supposedly turning around the Patriots, I don't think the Patriots looked vastly different in their first game under Mike Vrabel than they did last year with a coach that made it 1 year, right? Like, if we're being honest, the Patriots got in their own way. Drake May didn't look like he was really ready to run this offense. They never really got a run game going. It didn't feel like there was a plan of attack. Their defense tripped over themselves a bunch. In the meantime, the Raiders on the other side looked controlled. They looked calculated. It looked like they knew what was coming. They executed well. They called plays that the Patriots simply weren't ready for. The Raiders were better coached. The Raiders better executed. And to me, that speaks to culture. When you start to talk about what makes things different, when you're a team that sucks, and my favorite team has sucked for the better part, for the majority of the last 20-plus years, I have watched trash football. And I walked away from yesterday saying, you know what, it's just a win. It's just a win over a team that I don't think is going to be great in the Patriots, but it's pretty good. But the most important part about it is it just looked and felt different. And that, to me, is the statement you have to be looking for in week 1 to try and figure out what teams are going to make a rise.
And that's the football vibes index. Sometimes vibes, good vibes, can be a really powerful thing. And I just want to say, good for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, I think, is a very easy guy to root for. And I talked to a player who played under Pete Carroll in Seattle for a very, very long time. And I asked him, why do you think he wants to come back? You know, he's in his mid-70s. He's won a Super Bowl. He's won a national championship. He's done everything that I think as a coach you would want to accomplish. So why come back when you could just enjoy your riches on a boat? And that player told me he loves football. Like, he loves to coach football. He loves to develop young players. He just loves to be around the game. So I love, good stories for guys who just genuinely care about winning football games, about developing players, and just care about football. So good for Pete Carroll. New England, though, and it's 1 week under a new coaching staff with a second-year quarterback. So I know it's only 1 week, but we only have 1 week to go off of. The Patriots look like the team that I thought that they were going to be. And the Patriots were like that sexy team that everyone thought, oh, okay, the Patriots do something. Mike Vrabel, he's a great head coach. Drake May could take these next steps forward. There was all this sort of optimism surrounding the Patriots that I think was cemented only in feeling and not really necessarily in fact. And we just saw kind of the same things that we've always seen from the Patriots, right? Mike Vrabel said, we might be outmatched in talent, but what we will do as a team is take advantage of bad football. They didn't do that. In fact, it was a lot of them doing bad football things themselves yesterday. They had 9 penalties on the day. They were incredibly stagnant offensively. I didn't really see any development from Drake May. That's not to say that it can't come, but we didn't see it in week 1. They missed a field goal, just like silly points that they left on the board. The defense gave up several explosive plays. Credit to the Raiders for that, but also, Mike Vrabel's a defensive guy. The defense didn't look much better. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone, other gimme points that they just didn't get. And they also threw the ball 46 times. That's not a recipe for success for this team with a young quarterback and a new offensive system. So it just felt like kind of the same from the Patriots. And Mike Vrabel's whole calling card is like, we'll be more disciplined than you. And they weren't. Mike Vrabel's whole calling card is, we're not going to make the shoot yourself in the foot mistakes. And they did. So credit to the Raiders for feeling like there is so much optimism in the room, because there should be optimism in the room, because finally the Raiders feel like they have competent leadership. Whereas the Patriots, I'm left just feeling very,
I think part of this too, look, I know that it's sexy to yell and scream great, huge, hot takes, but anybody that's been listening to this show, and we appreciate you guys that hang out with us every day, I think have figured out that we're pretty measured in most of what we talk about. I like to think the measured approach on the Patriots has been consistent for me. Josh McDaniels' offense is very difficult. And I know people that have played in it. I've talked to guys that played in the league for a long time under Josh McDaniels. One guy that played 10 years in the league told me that the day that he walked into Josh McDaniels' offense was the day that he realized it was a foreign language, like nothing he'd ever seen before. So now you have Drake May, who's been with Josh for a few months, trying to learn a offense that one player told me is like a foreign language. And so you end up with 30 of 46. And like KOC, our own KOC, Drake May isn't the guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Drake May is going to be the guy with Josh McDaniels, because it does require a certain type of quarterback. But 30 of 46, Travion Henderson was supposed to be the answer, right? Coming into the day, it was Travion Henderson is going to be absolutely everything at running back. Look at their future. He had 5 rushes for 27 yards. How do you got Travion and Ramondre, between the two of them, carried the ball a total of 12 times. You ran the ball 18 times. It was wet. It was rainy. It was gross. You ran the ball 18 times, and that includes 4 times that Drake May got out. So you really used the running game 14 times. That to me is that's bad offensive play calling by Josh McDaniels in that situation.
You're setting your quarterback up to fail.
100%. Like the fact that Ashton Genty, who did not have a great game running the football, averaged less than 2 yards a rush. Ashton Genty had more rushes than the Patriots had as an entire team, and he ran for less than 2 yards a clip. Like, I just think that the Patriots are a work in progress, and that's why I keep saying the Patriots are going to be better this year. I just think this leap that Vegas wanted them to take to suddenly they're going to win 9-10 games, like, I don't see that. The Patriots, by the end of the year, reasonably, I think, are a 6 or 7 win team, but you feel much better about the direction they're heading in. I wish we would let gradual growth be more of the process of how we view certain football teams. We want everybody to do what the Texans did a couple of years ago or the Commanders did last year because that's more fun. But I just don't think sustainably, realistically, I keep saying this, there's a difference between being a fan of a playoff team and being a fan of a good team. I've watched 2 playoff teams in the last 20 years as a Raiders fan. Neither of those teams were particularly good. They just got hot at the right time. Well, if your team sucks, instead of rooting for the playoffs, because that feels good, root for the foundation of your team to become good. And that takes time. I'm not giving up on the Patriots. I think the Patriots are, to use the Danny Green, the Patriots are who we thought they were. I think the Patriots are a 6 or 7 win team. And I'm not sure the Raiders are much better than that. The Raiders, to me, are probably a 7 or 8 win team. But I walked away from week 1 saying, okay, here's what I know. The Patriots already don't have a guy. I should say the Raiders already have a guy that puts them in a situation where they take advantage of the opportunities they get. And that's all you should be asking for. But I'm going to be on one all week because my beloved Raiders are 1-0. I'll wait a few days to complain about next week being a 10 p.m. Monday night kickoff. That's way too old for my old ass on the East Coast.
That's rude and illegal.
It's rude. You know what, NFL? We need to have some words. Raj, call me. I don't like that. All right. We got Monday Night Football. Speaking of Monday Night Football, tonight we got a doozy. But the reports out of Chicago already have Bears fans concerned. We'll tell you about it next. Yahoo Sports Team. Our series, House of Dysfunction, begins at Go Long. First up, the curious case of Caleb Williams in a 2024 season from football hell. If you can't sacrifice, there's no substitute for the work. That's something he needs to learn. That's a quote from Tyler Dunn. Ty puts out this House of Dysfunction series. You can check it out on his site, on his Substack. And it's interesting. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, this all comes out days ahead of the Monday Night Football matchup we get tonight. We get Vikings, Bears, 8:15 p.m. Eastern divisional matchup. A lot of expectations for Caleb. And Caroline, I got to be honest, like I had a hard time with this article and this series, and not from Ty's standpoint. I don't think that I don't have a hard time with the writing. I have a hard time with the people that are speaking so loudly and saying some things that are wildly inflammatory about Caleb Williams under the guise of anonymity. And this is what gets really difficult because a lot of people won't talk unless they can remain anonymous. So it's important for journalists to be able to have anonymous sources. But when you are coming out and saying things like it's possible he has a learning disability, and you're saying it days before the season starts with the new coach quarterback combination, I found it to be jarring. I found it to be attacking. And while I'm not saying that it's not true, I can't find the why in the benefit in saying so many incredibly harsh things about a quarterback that, you don't even work with anymore. This was stunning to me.
This does not sit right with me in any form or fashion. I think that it is distasteful. I think it's tacky. I think it is unfair to Caleb Williams. And I think it's incredibly cowardly to not put your name on something like that and throw accusations around, share someone's personal business like that. And look, let's just say maybe Caleb Williams does suffer from a learning disability. So he did just fine at USC. He won a Heisman Trophy, for crying out loud. And in these reports, it did say that Ryan Poles, the general manager in Chicago, was aware of any sort of learning disability that Caleb Williams may have had. So let's just say he does, even though we don't know if he does. And it's also, by the way, none of our freaking business if he does have a learning disability. You're going to air out somebody's private business just because you might feel like in some form or fashion it could rewrite a certain narrative about that Chicago coaching staff last year. It is so gross and it is so icky, and the timing of it all. That Bears coaching staff got fired like almost a year ago at this point, and now that's coming out on, what was it, Friday, September 5th? Conveniently a couple of days before Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams make their debut in a head coaching quarterback tandem. None of it sits right with me. It feels very just like Global Inquirer kind of icky journalism. Not from the reporter. The reporter is reporting what he is told. He is doing his job, but from whoever he's getting this insight from, it just feels gross. Because I don't think that Caleb Williams was the problem in Chicago last year, Fitz. It's not Caleb Williams that manages the clock. It's not Caleb Williams that calls the offensive plays. And those were the issues in Chicago last year. Above all else, dysfunction, I think, that was with the coaching staff last year in Chicago. Caleb Williams still threw for 3,500 yards. The Bears were just bad around him. The coaching staff was just bad around him. So whatever this coaching staff is trying to do, if they're trying to, cover their own butts with all of this, if they're trying to rewrite a narrative, if they're trying to smear Caleb Williams' reputation, whatever it is, it's all just bad. It's gross. I don't agree with any of it. And I really frankly hate this for Caleb Williams.
I also want to add, I don't think Ben Johnson is stupid. And I say that loudly because coaching circles are small and agent circles within coaches are small. If there was truly a generational issue with Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson and his agent would have figured that out before he ever took the job. It doesn't mean that he necessarily sits here and loves Caleb or doesn't love Caleb. We don't know one way or the other. But as part of the evaluation process of which jobs they're going to take, they do as much research as they possibly can. You cannot convince me that if there was a serious learning issue with Caleb Williams, that that's something that Ben Johnson's agent and Ben wouldn't have been aware of. And if that's the case, then I guess I would ask, why would the most coveted coach in recent memory that had the opportunity to stay where he was if he wanted to be in a Super Bowl window or take any one of several different jobs that were offered to him, pick that one particular job with a quarterback that's, according to this report, is being at least framed to be uncoachably bad at things? Like, I have a hard time. Like, it's like, it just, none of that makes sense. None of that makes sense to me, and I have a problem with all of it. Caroline, let's look at this game, though, because we have two quarterbacks that have a lot on the line. Tonight, Monday Night Football, Caleb, J.J. McCarthy, Minnesota at Chicago. Which quarterback do you trust more in this game?
I have to go Caleb Williams, because we have a full year of a sample size from Caleb Williams. And sometimes there are those first-time starter, rookie quarterback bugaboos that you just have to get over. The speed of the game, getting used to reading NFL defenses, executing a playbook for the first time. Like, you could be, the best rookie quarterback that this league has ever seen, and there's still some of those hurdles that you have to get past, and you just have to live and learn and make mistakes and, learn from them. Caleb Williams has had a year of being able to do that. Now, it was with a different coaching staff, and it was with a different offense, but he still has been able to get used to the speed of the game. So I think I have to say I trust more from Caleb Williams because JJ McCarthy is a total wild card. He is a massive question mark. It feels like JJ McCarthy is kind of, in a way, coming into his rookie year since he wasn't able to see any game time last season. So for experience and experience alone, I have to go with Caleb Williams.
And you're totally right on that, but I take the other side simply because I've seen enough tape of Caleb running backwards that I get fearful that in a moment of instinct, he runs backwards and that's going to work out poorly for him. Everything I've ever seen from every quarterback that plays for KOC in Minnesota comes out and is immediately successful. And I can't make it make sense. So even though I'm sitting there saying, God, who knows if JJ McCarthy is really the answer, because we have no proof of concept, I trust him. And part of the reason I trust him, I'm going to give you a very hot take, a prediction for tonight's game. I believe tonight Adam Thielen will outplay Justin Jefferson. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out on this. You got a young quarterback, and what I believe that KOC is going to do with J.J. McCarthy is give him layers, kind of like we saw Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury last year. Every week he got a little bit more of the offense. So get rid of the ball quickly, do it as safely as possible. Well, I think Minnesota is going to be in a situation where the Bears are shifting everything to stop Justin Jefferson. That means Adam Thielen, who comes into this offense with some knowledge of it because of his experience in it, knowledge with the organization, with everything, he's going to help get everything lined up, and he's going to be in a better coverage situation. So I believe that JJ is going to be able to get to Thielen. Thielen has a big game, and that's why I think Minnesota wins tonight. Justin Jefferson follows the trend of top wide receivers that are quiet. Who do you have tonight?
Yeah, it's been a rough weekend for fantasy receivers, speaking from somebody that has Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith as their starting receivers. I'm just saying nobody cares about my fantasy team, but still, I don't disagree with you. I think there's going to be, thank you, Fitzy, a lot of TJ Hawkinson, a lot of Aaron Jones, a lot of quick throws, a lot of running the football. I don't think that KOC is going to put JJ McCarthy in any sort of situation where it's like, you got to go out there and you got to win the game for us. He's going to bring him along slowly. So with as little as we really know about JJ McCarthy, there is that sense of trust factor that we have with his head coach and play caller and Kevin O'Connell.
What I know is we will be reacting to it first thing tomorrow. Come back 9 a.m. Eastern for more Yahoo Sports Daily. For Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. Enjoy your Monday. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.